Welcome to a new episode of Behind the Roast. Today I want to very specifically discuss roast profiling strategies for washed coffees versus natural coffees. And I'll include some words on honey processed coffees as well. So in order to understand how to roast these coffees, how to treat them, it's important to have some knowledge about how they're being produced. And you can see here in front of me, I'm sitting here also a little bit with my Gesha village hat on, because I'm the co-founder of this beautiful sprawling estate, coffee estate in the far west of Ethiopia. And Gesha Village Estate was established more than 10 years ago in 2012. And at this farm where we cultivate Gesha varieties and also local indigenous Ethiopian varieties, we actually have three key processes: traditional washed, the more traditional style of natural, and we also do honey processed coffee. Now, of course, we have been experimenting like anyone in the world, many producers, with some of the experimental processing styles, but it seems like that the washed coffees are becoming more popular again. It seems like the roasters around the world might be a little bit bored with all these funky flavors that you produce with these experimental natural hybrid processing styles. So in today's episodes, we're going to do some roasting, of course, as well. But I want to share with you some insights, some knowledge about what identifies washed versus naturals. Now, washed coffees, of course, they're produced by harvesting ripe cherries and then processing these cherries either with or without the use of fermentation, so that in the end, the product at the mill is the parchment coffee, which is then ultimately prepared for shipment, and that gives you your green coffee beans. So washed coffees, what specifically are we looking for? We are looking for coffees that display transparent, clean flavors. Some roasters are very much in favor of washed coffees, and they will not even get close to these natural coffees. And so washed coffees, they have become again more popular, because I also see with specialty roasters, even in Asia and in the Middle East, that washed coffees, because of these clean flavors, and if they're well processed, they're sweet as well, and they feature citrus notes and all kinds of fruit notes. So these clean, transparent flavors of washed coffees are revered. At Gesha Village Estate, we process about 25% of our production as washed. Now, when it comes to naturals, there's some sort of a confusion where it comes to the sugars that are presumed are migrating from the cherry to the coffee bean. That's actually not correct. So as a whole, sucrose is the main component of the sugars of the green coffee bean, and by dry weight, sucrose can be up to 9% of the overall weight of the coffee bean. So the sucrose, the amount of sucrose that we produce, doesn't really increase or decrease as a result of processing, but it more increases or decreases as a result of variety, the growing conditions, other factors than processing. There's evidence that as a result of washed processing, that we actually decrease the sugars in the coffee. But in natural coffees, we found, and all kinds of research has been done on this, that there's more glucose and specifically fructose. And fructose, because of the chemistry that fructose develops during processing, can then lead to these really interesting flavors. There is interesting to know when you dry coffee cherries. Here I have some dried coffee cherries that were processed at Gesha Village Estate. During that process, also the bacteria that float in the environment, they start interacting with the enzymes present in the pulp and in the mucilage. And that by itself creates very interesting additional fruity flavors, as we know that these can be found in natural coffees. Now, then there's this other category, the in-between category of honey processed coffees. So these are coffees where we depulp the coffee cherries and then we dry the parchment beans with that mucilage on drying beds or on patios, and that gives us our honey processed coffees. Now, roasting styles really have to be looked at carefully, because I cannot just treat my washed coffee in the same way as the natural coffee. And so I need to be very careful about this. So after this little introduction, I just want to show you a little bit more about the intricate steps that Gesha village follows in the processing of the coffees. So let's look at some of those steps at play at the farm. I took this video on a very recent visit to Gesha village estate. Here at Gesha village, we're now at this critical moment of the day. Later in the afternoon, rain starts. So now it comes down to both the integrity of the beds, as well as the swiftness and the alertness of the staff to cover the beds. Here we have around 250 beds. You see most of them behind me. These beds are for honey process, washed process, as well as natural process. Natural process also includes anaerobic process. The honey process and wash process, you can see over there, you can see a completely shaded area where these beans are being dried very gradually. That drying is done in anywhere between 15 to 25 days, while the natural process typically is done a bit slower. And that's for various reasons, specifically also for the reason that we want to preserve the integrity of the sugars in the coffee. And doing that requires us to put shade netting over the coffee during the day, most of the day. During some parts of the day, it's more open. In the natural process, there are some variations possible depending on the flavor profile we're aiming at. In order to get a more like a winey, fruity flavor, we at times allow a thicker mass, thicker than 3 to 4 centimeters even at times, where then, depending on the assessment of the quality inspectors, that the coffee is rotated so that it can then dry on to the next stage. And drying, besides all the other aspects of processing, is an intricate element of producing consistent tasting, super high quality coffee, as we're doing here at Gesha village. And that summarizes in short the key elements of the processing here. During the day, the temperatures can go up as high as 30, even higher in 30 degrees C centigrade, or even higher. So having a high level of integrity of the beds is really important. And you can also see that we have been applying this special design of these drying beds with these arcs. And if you cover the arcs with the shade netting, you basically allow airspace above the coffee. At night, when it starts raining, and when we cover the beds with plastic, then you have enough headspace above the coffee so that we prevent condensation. And those are in short, some critical elements for the best possible drying results. This is where it all starts, selective picking of ripe cherries. These pickers have been picking all day, and they're now coming back here with their harvest of the day. to get it inspected, to first sort out their own inconsistencies or unripe cherries or overripe cherries or any other foreign matter. And then it will be inspected by the supervisor of the cherry collection. And you can see they take this very seriously. And these types of leaves we don't necessarily need, or an unripe cherry like this. This is so crucial because whatever you're bringing into the mill will determine the quality of the product that comes out. And so ripe cherries for sweetness, for great flavors, for integer flavors, for clean flavors are key to the operation here at Gesha Village Estate.
Okay, here this is like one of like our experimental category, which is called like cold semi-anaerobic natural. So when we do this experiment, like we are fermenting like the whole cherry. So specifically for this load, this one is like fermented for 110 hours, which is like 5 days. So based on their like time of fermentation, we get like different profiles like when we are cupping like those coffees after it is dried. So basically what we are going to get from this one is like I can say like definitely like a really red fruit floral coffees with a hint of like jasmine, like berries, a lot of berries and chocolate flavors like here. And also we will gonna have like strawberries, we can get like honey processed like this one. This is like a very exceptional coffee you can't get like from anywhere. Like here in Gesha Village, this is a type of coffee we are producing. So as you can see, like the cherries are like fermented like at different levels of the coffee, because like this one is like some of the beans are like some of the cherries are like overripe, and then like there is like some of them are like 100% ripe. So during the fermentation, like the coffee are like different kind of like hours of fermentation, so that you are going to end up with different colors. So this different color arises from the cherries, because like we get like cherry ripeness like at 100%, and some of them are like overripe. So this thing can give like a distinct flavor for the coffee like at the end. This is like really nice one.
So interesting, what we could see in the videos is that for the drying of these cherries going through a process at the drying tables, we can modulate the flavors of the coffee by varying the depth of the coffee on the beds. So that's one step. The drying process, of course, is a very important step in the production of these naturals and of these honey processed coffees. Some more comments about the honey process. I find honey process to be very challenging from a processing perspective, but also from a roasting perspective. And I'll make some more comments on that later. And the next step of this video, I want to just highlight there's some really good literature where it comes to Ethiopian coffees, like this book about Ethiopian coffee varieties. Highly recommendable, helps you to learn more about Ethiopia's coffees. This book, Where the Wild Coffee Grows, wonderful book that's partially set in Ethiopia. And then also I want to congratulate again Chris Kornman for the production and the writing of this beautiful book on green coffee. So these resources can help you learn a lot. And then, by the way, this is a Gemina, it's a genuine Ethiopian jar that's used for preparing and serving coffee. So next, let's dive into the strategies for roasting and some of the key considerations. Okay, now we are ready to roast these beautiful coffees. I have been able to travel for this episode to the beautiful factory of Giesen, and here I have the first batch, the first coffee that we are going to roast, which is a Gesha Village natural process. What are we looking for in washed coffee, we are looking for acidity. We want to highlight the beauty of the acidity of such coffee.